The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Thursday, December 4th, 2025. Your reader for this first hour is Jim Duffy. And beginning with our front page, signs of peril flashing for GOP. Tennessee vote adds to evidence of a blue wave. This article is authored by Zach Anderson and Joey Garrison of USA Today. Alarm bells already were blaring for President Trump and the Republicans. Now, the outcome of a special election in Tennessee on December 2nd provides further evidence that Democratic voters are energized heading into the next crucial election cycle after seeing their leaders in 2024 get booted from power in Washington. The volunteer state race for an open U.S. seat ended with the Democratic nominee, Afton Ben, losing by 9 percentage points in a district Trump carried last November by 22 points. That 13-point swing away from the GOP is one in a series of recent races in which Democrats overperformed against historic ballot results. It has their party leaders sounding increasingly optimistic about next year, while Republicans are the ones expressing concerns. This is one of the biggest flashing red light warning signs we've seen yet for Republicans. Matt Whitlock, a former GOP Senate aide and advisor to the National Republican Senatorial Committee, wrote on social media as the Tennessee race wrapped up. Though Trump was eager to tout the Republican candidate's victory in Tennessee, the fact that such a deeply red district was even competitive could signal problems for his party. Trump, near the end of the campaign, inserted himself into the race, as well as millions of dollars from the National Republican machine, to avert an upset in a district that Tennessee Republicans had created in 2022 to be safely held in the GOP column. Trump held multiple teletown halls in the final days of the race, rallied his nearly 109 million followers on X to back Republican candidate Matt Van Epps, and called directly into a rally on the eve of the election. Outside Republican political action committees spent heavily on attack ads, portraying Ben as a radical liberal. Though these efforts appeared to work to galvanize a Republican base that wasn't paying close attention to the race, it offered a warning sign for the 2026 midterm campaign. If Republicans have to spend millions of dollars defending seats like Tennessee's 7th District next fall, the dam has broken and it's a legitimate wave, said Nathan Gonzalez, who runs the nonpartisan election handicapping firm Inside Elections. Gonzalez said there are encouraging signs for Democrats. Among them, Trump's approval rating is sagging. Democrats are doing well in 2025 races, and polling shows voters favoring Democrats next year in an election that will decide control of Congress and whether Trump continues to have free rein or faces aggressive oversight for the final 2 years of his second term. At the center of it all is a president courting a backlash for his stewardship of the country 10 months into his second administration. Cost of living remains a major concern for voters, something Ben and other Democrats have highlighted relentlessly. Democrats hope the discontent translates into a much broader political battlefield in the midterms, with opportunities to flip seats that in other years might be safely Republican and sparking what is known in politics as a blue wave. What happened tonight in Tennessee makes it clear Democrats are on offense and Republicans are on the ropes. Democratic National Committee Chairman Ken Martin said, Republicans avoided a worst-case scenario in Tennessee, though, and there are still plenty of wild cards with nearly a year before the midterms, including a redistricting battle across the country that could provide the GOP with a more favorable House map. A Supreme Court decision is looming on the legality of Texas' mid-decade battle over its new Republican-friendly House boundaries. A win is a win, said GOP consultant Mike Duhame. People will debate the margin, but Republicans should be pleased and Democrats should be disappointed. Blue wave coming? Tennessee's vote was the latest in a series of off-year elections that have Democrats optimistic. The party has done well everywhere from Iowa, where Democrats flipped 2 Senate seats, to New Jersey and Virginia, where Democrats won governor's races in landslides. Another factor in Democrats' favor, the party that doesn't occupy the White House typically does well in midterm elections. And the political dynamics heading into the 2026 fit that pattern, according to Inside Elections Gonzalez. The 2026 cycle is looking like a typical midterm election with an unpopular president, and in those conditions, the president's party particularly suffers, particularly in the House, he said. Trump's approval ratings has dropped to a second-term low of 36%, according to a Gallup poll released on November the 28th. Meanwhile, an NPR PBS News Marist poll taken November 10th through the 13th found Democrats have opened a sizable 14-point lead nationally, 55% to 41%, when voters are asked which party they plan to back in the midterms. It's the largest Democratic lead in the poll's generic ballot since 2017, which came during Trump's first term. Democrats won back the House in a blue wave the following year. Dozens of Republican-held seats could be vulnerable in the midterms if Democrats can match Benn's performance in Tennessee. There are 37 Republican-held House seats that Trump carried by less than 13 percentage points in 2024, according to calculations by the Down Ballot, a newsletter covering elections other than the presidency. What it says is that we are coming deep into your territory and many of you are going to lose your jobs, Representative Jason Crow, Democrat from Colorado, said on CNN on December the 2nd, in discussing what a single-digit loss for the Democratic candidate in a seat Trump carried by 22 percentage points would mean for Republicans. Redistricting is still a big wild card, though. Trump is pushing red state leaders to redraw their House maps to carve out more GOP-leaning seats, and blue state leaders have responded with their own redistricting moves. When you break it all down, I still expect Republicans to have the advantage through the redistricting battle, but I don't expect it to be by enough seats to insulate them from a poor midterm, Gonzalez said. Democrats across the country have worked to make their races a referendum on Trump and his policies. Former GOP Representative Fred Upton said Republicans are getting a little dose of reality with the off-year election results. People are angry, said Upton, a longtime lawmaker who retired in 2023 after facing fallout for voting to impeach Trump over the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol. Ben, who is 36 and the youngest female member of the Tennessee legislature, seized on voter unease over the economy, touting her support for ending the state's grocery tax and campaigned on lowering health care costs. She embraced a pragmatic slogan, feed kids, fix roads, and fund hospitals. Yet Ben's history of liberal policy stances also provided ample fodder for Republicans who labored her the AOC of Tennessee and dumped millions into ads highlighting her statements. The 13-point swing in the district from Trump's 2024 performance was the lowest overperformance for Democrats in a House special election this year and could prompt a debate about whether the party needs to run more centrist candidates in similar districts. Meanwhile, Republicans largely have embraced Trump, Van Epps said after his victory in the Tennessee race, that we show that running from Trump is how you lose. Running with Trump is how you win. Though that position might work in a strongly red district, others in the GOP warn it could spell trouble in swing districts should Trump's poll numbers continue to sag. Duhaime said it could even force Republican candidates to carve their own image a little bit away from Trump. Returning to our front page, few hiring undocumented workers charged. From Christopher Kahn of USA Today, a Michigan couple was arrested recently and charged with employing and housing hundreds of undocumented immigrants for their profitable plumbing business. The case, which entered the public eye after a 5-year investigation, drew national headlines and was described in detail on the Internal Revenue Service's website. One reason the story caught national attention? It's a rare instance of an employer being held accountable for allegedly hiring undocumented workers. Since returning to office, President Trump has launched a mass deportation campaign, surging federal resources across the country in operations that have overwhelmingly targeted immigrants believed to be in the country illegally, not their employers. The Trump administration's enforcement has increasingly targeted small business, from car washes to family farms and restaurants. But in the vast majority of instances, employers have managed to escape any criminal liability, at least for now. Experts said accountability for employers for hiring unauthorized workers has vexed officials for decades, including both Democratic and Republican administrations. There are several reasons why business owners are rarely charged for employing undocumented immigrants. First, it's a difficult case to prove. The government must show intent by demonstrating that business owners knew their employees were undocumented. Such cases can take months or years to build, as was the case with the couple arrested on November 18th in Michigan. Moreover, tools that would enable more scrutiny of employees' work status aren't widely enforced. The largest program, E-Verify, which is run by the Department of Homeland Security, is not federally required, and most states don't mandate its use for all employees, including many Republican-led states such as Texas. And even if those requirements became stricter, many businesses work off the books, and employers can shift the burden to contractors to protect themselves from civil penalties or criminal prosecution. As a result of rampant loopholes, high legal thresholds, and limited enforcement, experts say employers are largely shielded from criminal liability, while workers can be rounded up and deported in a matter of minutes. The imbalance in this whole thing is just so blatant. Muzaffar Shisti, a senior fellow at the Nonpartisan Migration Policy Institute, told USA Today, "It's all consequences for workers, very little consequences for employers." For most of U.S. history, there were no consequences for business owners who hired undocumented immigrants. That changed in 1986 with the passage of the Immigration Reform and Control Act, which created civil and criminal penalties for employers who knowingly hire someone in the country illegally. The theory behind the law was that stricter workplace enforcement would take away the main draw to the United States, employment opportunities, and therefore drop the rate of illegal immigration. But the law, after heavy lobbying efforts from business interests, included the word knowingly, forcing the government to prove intent and dramatically raising the bar for prosecution. The result, low levels of enforcement. From 1986 to 2019, fewer than 15 employers were prosecuted annually on immigration-related charges, according to Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse, or TRAC, a nonpartisan research organization at Syracuse University. Even fewer were convicted and faced jail time, and most received fines. "That's really pathetic," Shisti said. "Civil fines, which have previously totaled in the millions, are not enough to deter business owners from hiring people without work permits," he said. "If you fine them $1 million, that's the cost of doing business," he said. "That's a slap on the wrist for an employer who's making millions off exploitable labor of undocumented people. They just write it into their business plan." E-Verify has seen a similar trend. First launched as a pilot program in the late 1990s, E-Verify requires employees to provide documents demonstrating their legal work status to employers. Despite efforts to reform and expand the program, it's still only used by a small fraction of businesses nationwide. As of June 30th, just 14% of all U.S. employers participated in the federal program, according to the Migration Policy Institute. Efforts to pass a federal E-Verify mandate has failed, and most states don't require all employers to use the system. Over the years, presidents have differed in how they handle workplace immigration enforcement. President George W. Bush's administration carried out several large workplace raids, including at a meatpacking plant in Iowa that involved hundreds of federal agents and led to the detention of almost 400 undocumented workers. Presidents Barack Obama and Joe Biden halted workplace immigration raids in favor of scrutiny on employers and hiring practices, though the number of employers to face criminal charges remains small, research shows. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 15 minutes past the hour. Continuing, Trump, especially in his second term in office, has overseen a surge in workplace raids and sweeping immigration crackdowns nationwide, prompting criticism, economic repercussions, and some backpedaling on the White House part. Since January, there have been dozens of raids at construction sites, restaurants, and farms. But in the vast majority of these cases, charges against employers have not followed, leading to a view of uneven enforcement where workers are detained and deported while their employers get away unscathed. Experts noted an instance during the first Trump administration when a business owner who hired undocumented workers was let off the hook. In 2017, Trump commuted the sentence of Shalom Rubashkin, the owner of the agri-processors meatpacking plant raided under the Bush administration. Rubashkin had served 8 years of his 20-year sentence on financial charges after his immigration charges were dismissed. Now, how does a criminal case against a business owner come together? One of the main reasons charges are rare for employers who hire undocumented immigrants is the high bar to prove intent. Federal court records in the case against the Michigan couple arrested in mid-November offer a window into how investigators build such a case against an employer. Federal authorities allege that between January of 2022 and December of last year, Moises and Raquel Orduna Rios hired more than 200 undocumented immigrants to work at their plumbing business and housed many of them in rundown motels and houses, all while they raked in $74 million in revenue. Attempts to reach the couple and their legal representation were unsuccessful. To build their case, federal agents kept close tabs on the company's vans, financial transactions, communications, and the undocumented workers for years, records show. Border Patrol agents arrested several of the undocumented employees in operations over the summer and convinced others to provide information that will likely help prosecutors prove intent. For example, on December 27th of last year, Border Patrol agents went to a tow yard in Rochester, New York, where one agent in plain clothes struck up a conversation with an employee. The man told the undercover agent that even if he was undocumented, the company would still hire him and provide him with housing, a vehicle, tools, and a small crew, according to a complaint. The years-long investigation also uncovered messages between Moises Orduna Rios and some of his workers in which they discussed concerns about them being undocumented and getting caught. On February the 1st, Orduna Rios wrote to several of the workers in a group chat. "Gentlemen, with all the controversy that is going on, it's better to get ready. Drive the speed limit. Limit yourselves going to the store. Only do minimal running of errands, and do not have any gatherings, such as barbecues." 9 months after sending that message, as feds continued to scrutinize his company records, deposits, and communications, Moises Orduna Rios, the owner of the company, and his wife, who was a company treasurer, were arrested. Returning to our front page once again. For many, caregiving is the hardest job ever. Readers share stories exploring the struggles, financial burdens, and mental health impacts. From Madeline Mitchell of USA Today. Katie Freeman, 39, was a senior leader at a healthcare company when she unexpectedly delivered her son, Ali, at only 26 weeks pregnant. The next 4 months included a lengthy hospital stay for Freeman, a trying neonatal intensive care unit journey for Ali and work. Freeman's employer, she said, shipped her laptop to her in the hospital. These are the kinds of stories USA Today heard from caregivers around America. Readers responded to the Cost of Care survey, sharing how caregiving has changed them in their lives. USA Today launched the survey in May, asking readers about caregiving challenges and solutions they'd like to see in the care space. I went back to work at 8 weeks postpartum, even though I was still in the hospital 6 weeks postpartum due to complications, Freeman from Aurora, Colorado wrote. I had to work because losing my insurance was not an option. Ali was in the was in the NICU for 4 months, and I visited him every day on my lunch break. Continuing, as part of the Cost of Care project since May, USA Today has shared stories from caregivers exploring the mental health impacts of caregiving. What happens when an aging parent needs more help than you can give? Parents' fears of what will happen to their disabled children when they're gone, and how language barriers in the health field leave some caregivers without respite, I should say. Let me repeat that. Nearly 450 survey respondents, like Freeman, provided insight into what caregiving in America looks like today. Respondents said that they've been caregiving anywhere from 2 months to more than 50 years. Many said that they've changed jobs or quit working because of caregiving. More than 70% of respondents said they've developed their own health issues while being a caregiver, and 67% said they've dipped into savings or accrued debt to cover the cost of care. About half of the respondents said they've used federal, state, or local caregiving resources, but nearly 180 respondents said they have tried to access caregiving resources and were denied. Here are some of their stories. Caring for Dad while on chemo. I was diagnosed with cancer in my second year of caregiving. I had to go through radiation and chemo while taking care of my dad. I ended up having to have major surgery and still had to take care of my father. Most people don't want to put their loved one in a facility, but if they have to, the system takes every dime from the patient until nothing is left, and they can go on Medicaid. There's something wrong with that. This is from Vicki Davis, 70, from Aventura, Florida. Next, the hardest job I've ever had. I had lost my job and moved back home with my mom, who was taking care of my younger sister, who was fighting a losing battle with cancer. She died, and I stayed with Mom, who was 88 years old. Caregiving is a 24/7 job and is a very difficult job. I was the cook, grocery shopper, nurse, doctor, and entertainer, etc. I have told people that caregiving was the hardest job I ever had, and it was the most rewarding one. I am 69 years old, live by myself, and have my health is not good and will continue to deteriorate as time goes by. I wonder what kind of caregiving will I get when I can't take care of myself. From Terry Bird, 69, of Bradford, Tennessee. The next one, family makes too much money to qualify for the assistance. We thought we were doing the right thing, insisting on caring for our son by ourselves. It has been a sacrifice for all of us. We have 2 other children who have no limitations, and no matter how hard my husband and I tried, I know that they sometimes felt overshadowed by their brother. We wish that we could have an attendant that could come even 1 day a week to help. My husband has a good job in insurance, but all through my son's childhood, we were told that we had made too much money for him to qualify for assistance. Once he turned 18, we discovered that the wait list was so long that he may never qualify. We have never really had a family vacation due to the expense. Our money is used to cover any medical items and home improvements to make our son's access to the home easier. Meanwhile, I have had 2 heart attacks due to my stress. Also, I tore my rotator cuff in my right shoulder, trying to keep my son from falling. That was from Cynthia Rose. She's 61, of Arlington, Texas. He's 34 and stuck in limbo. I am 34 years old and have minimal work experience, so once my caregiving duties end, I am afraid that employers will find it difficult to hire someone like me. I scoff at those who suggest that I just attempt to obtain a work from home position, as if it is easy and will accommodate my caregiving responsibilities. My contemporaries are progressing in their careers, meeting society-accepted milestones, such as marriage and having children, while I remain anxious and depressed due to my mother's declining condition. From Stephen Santos, 34, of Pasadena, California. Grief can be overwhelming. My husband was a Navy veteran. The VA had facilities for dementia care, but there was never space for my husband. The only offer was for a live-in facility 2 hours from our ranch. He depended on me for security, and my not being able to visit him often would have been devastating for him. I raise livestock. I had to eliminate anything that wasn't critical to the care of the animals. I barely managed basic care. I feel fortunate to have been able to afford help a few days a week, but our savings dwindled at an alarming rate. It would have been heavenly to take a break and just go somewhere for a few days without him. And counseling, someone to just listen and sympathize. From Robin Snyder, who is 77 from Kirkland, Arizona. And the last story, the wait was relentless. While helping care for my father with Alzheimer's during COVID, I was also trying to keep my 2 young adult children afloat emotionally and academically, manage a family business, and hold on to my own demanding career. Living on our rural family farm without access to high-speed internet meant that even basic telehealth services were not an option. The wait was relentless. In the middle of it all, I landed in the hospital with severe kidney stones. Not long after, I underwent bladder mesh reconstruction surgery because I had ignored my own health for too long. And that wasn't the bottom. I hit a mental health crisis I never saw coming. The kind that builds slowly until suddenly you're drowning and no one sees it because you're the strong one, the caregiver. There was no break, no pause button. My phone kept ringing. My inbox kept filling. My kids still needed me. My dad still needed me. And the world still expected me to be the glue that held everything together. I wish we talked more honestly about what caregivers costs, what caregiving costs, not just in time or money, but in body and soul. From Amy Robinette, who is 48 from Pine Tops, North Carolina. Feds target New Orleans with latest immigration enforcement operation, from Christopher Kahn of USA Today. Federal agents launched a law enforcement operation in New Orleans, the Department of Homeland Security announced on December the 3rd, as the Trump administration expands its crackdown on illegal immigration to another Democratic-led city. The agency said in a statement that the mission, dubbed Operation Catahoula Crunch, will target criminal illegal aliens roaming free thanks to sanctuary policies. Federal officials have not said how many agents will be sent to New Orleans or how long the operation will last. The Trump administration has launched similar campaigns, often over the objection of local and state officials in Los Angeles, Chicago, Washington, and most recently Charlotte, North Carolina. In a statement, DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said the New Orleans enforcement will focus on violent criminals. President Trump similarly said immigration agents will target the worst of the worst violent offenders. Results from previous immigration enforcement efforts show that many of those swept up in recent operations have no criminal history. Of the more than 600 people arrested in a blitz in Chicago, only 16 had a criminal record, according to Justice Department records submitted in federal court. The surge of federal resources comes as New Orleans is experiencing a drop in crime rates. According to city data, violent crimes, including murder, rape, and aggravated assault, are down 7% from last year and 32% from 2022, when the city had the USA's highest homicide rate. Louisiana Republican Governor Jeff Landry, a close ally of Trump, said he supports the federal intervention. "We welcome our federal partners," he said in a recent Fox News appearance, describing New Orleans as a crime-ridden city. New Orleans Mayor-elect Helena Moreno, a Democrat, said she was concerned by federal agents' actions in other cities and launched a reporting tool to track potentially unlawful behavior by immigration officers. "My first priority is to keep our community safe. The reports of due process violations and potential abuses in other cities are concerning," she said in a statement in late November. "I want our community to be aware and informed of the protections available under law." Excuse me. Since rumors spread of an operation in New Orleans, hundreds of demonstrators have taken to the streets in recent days to speak out against the federal push. Immigrant rights advocates braced for the arrival of federal agents, warning residents in immigrant communities to limit their time outdoors. New Orleans is among a group of cities the Department of Justice considers sanctuary jurisdictions, which the agency defines as places with policies, laws, or regulations that impede enforcement of federal immigration laws. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 30 minutes past the hour. Continuing, for more than a decade, the New Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office, which manages all detention facilities in New Orleans, has had a policy of refusing requests from immigration officials to temporarily hold arrested suspects unless they've been charged with murder, rape, or other serious violent offenses. In February, Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrill sued the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office, alleging the agency's policies violate a state 2024 law passed requiring law enforcement agencies to cooperate with federal immigration authorities. I seem to have lost my place here. Okay, I found my place. Search for missing Malaysia Airlines plane will resume. From Janine Santucci of USA Today. More than 11 years after Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 vanished with all 239 people on board, a new search for its wreckage is set to be launched, the Malaysian government announced. Malaysia's Ministry of Transport said in a news release December 3rd that a deep-sea search will resume December 30th and last intermittently for 55 days. The U.S. company Ocean Infinity, which has led earlier searches, will carry out the search in a targeted area assessed to have the highest probability of locating the aircraft, the ministry said. MH370 disappeared and is presumed to have crashed on March the 8th, 2014, while flying from Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia to Beijing. Over the years, pieces of the plane have washed ashore, but the main wreckage has never been found. Austin-based Ocean Infinity searched for the plane in 2018. Malaysia announced in December of last year that the company would search again, but the search was called off in April after a few weeks because of bad weather. Searches by multiple governments have also been fruitless. Authorities didn't exactly say where the search would focus, but teams had been searching in the southern Indian Ocean. The Ministry of Transport said the search would be carried out under terms of a service agreement with Ocean Infinity from March. Malaysia will pay the firm $70 million if substantive wreckage is found, Reuters reported. Ocean Infinity declined to comment on the search plans. What happened to the plane? MH370 departed from the airport in Kuala Lumpur at 12:41 a.m. on March the 8th, 2014, headed for Beijing on what should have been about a 5-hour flight. Less than an hour into the flight, the Boeing 777-200ER plane stopped communicating with the ground, but no distress signal was sent. Investigators believe the plane continued to fly for hours and ultimately crashed in the Indian Ocean. Exactly what caused the plane to stop transmitting data and communications is unknown, but a report released in 2018 suggested the loss of communications could have been caused deliberately by someone on board. The plane carried more than 150 Chinese passengers, 50 Malaysian passengers, and people from countries including France, Australia, Indonesia, India, the United States, Ukraine, and Canada. No remains have been found. Turning to page 4 of our front section of USA Today, Trump accounts offer $1,000 in free funds. IRA for kids, for those born between 2025 and 2028. From Danielle DeVise of USA Today. All children born between 2025 and 28 will reap a baby shower gift from Congress and President Donald Trump, a $100 deposit into a Trump account. Think of Trump accounts as seed money to encourage children and families to save and build wealth for the many expenses of adulthood. It's an IRA for kids, said Evan Morgan, a principal in the tax advisory group at Kaufman Rawson, an accounting and advisory firm who spoke to USA Today in August. Trump accounts are part of the tax and spending package signed into law this summer by President Trump. They join a crowded field of tax advantage savings plans that help Americans navigate the costs of education, health care, and retirement, among other things. What's unusual in this case is that the accounts start at birth and with a $1,000 balance. That balance also is about to get bigger. Michael Dell, CEO of Dell Technologies, is contributing more than $6 billion to the program that should boost the value of about 25 million accounts by $250, according to an announcement on December the 2nd. Excuse me. Excuse me. The president wants others in the business world to follow the lead. To me, if I drew a best case scenario on that $1,000, it would be sitting in that IRA, compounding until I retired, said J. Spencer Williams, founder and CEO of the Retirement Clearinghouse, a financial technology firm, who spoke to USA Today earlier in the year. Now, how do Trump accounts work? According to an analysis from Morningstar, the Tax Foundation, and other sources, the government pledges to create an account for any baby born between 2025 and 28 and fund it with a one-time deposit of $1,000. To qualify, the baby would need only a Social Security number. Parents and others may contribute up to $5,000 a year into the accounts until the child turns 18. An employer may contribute up to $2,500 toward the $5,000 cap. State and local governments and private charities will be allowed to make broad contributions. No one may contribute to the accounts until July of next year. Other details are still being ironed out. To claim an account, parents may have to check a box on a tax form testifying that they are new parents, said Williams of the Retirement Clearinghouse. The new law requires Trump account funds to be invested in low-cost stock index funds, which mirror the performance of an index such as the S&P 500. Parent contributions are after tax, but that money is not taxable when it is withdrawn. Any earnings on the contributions, however, are taxed when you withdraw them. You can't generally withdraw money from a Trump account until the year a child turns 18. After that, it functions like a traditional individual retirement account. That means 20 or 30 years from now, a young adult will be able to withdraw money to cover education expenses or a first-time house purchase without penalties. You can also hold on to the money until retirement. At age 59 and a half, the early withdrawal penalties go away. The accounts were originally designed to be spent by children in their young adulthood. The Senate restructured them into something more like a conventional IRA. This became nothing but a retirement account at the end of the day, and there's nothing wrong with that, said Miklos Ringbauer, a certified public accountant in Southern California. The last-minute changes left many people confused about Trump accounts. Ringbauer said he has fielded questions from clients. We have to correct all the misinformation that's out there, he said. Are Trump accounts a good investment? Given the promise of free money from the government, Ringbauer said, it's hard to imagine many parents will pass up the chance to sign up. Anything is better than nothing, he said. There are so many kids who start out with nothing. The harder question is whether parents should actively contribute to the accounts over the next 18 years. It's free money. The question is whether you would add on to it, said Monique Morrissey, senior economist at Left-Leaning Economic Policy Institute. If your goal is to save for a child's education, a 529 education savings account offers more flexibility and tax benefits, according to a Tax Foundation analysis. I think most parents are going to be better off saving in a 529 for their children rather than this new Trump account. But it certainly makes sense to collect on the $1,000 contribution, said Romina Boccia, Director of Budget and Entitlement Policy at the Cato Institute, a libertarian think tank. Boccia calls Trump accounts a blatant giveaway and a way for the Trump administration in their hopes to leave a permanent mark by naming a rather useless savings account after the current president. Morrissey predicts Trump accounts will become a niche thing, favored by parents with large portfolios and paid investment advisors. I don't think these are going to take off in a big way, she said. The Tax Foundation notes that the U.S. tax code already provides for at least 11 different tax-advantaged savings vehicles, each with different rules, limitations, and regulations. On the other hand, a Trump account encourages the kind of long-term retirement savings that financial planners generally recommend. The earlier you invest, the more your investments are likely to grow before you cash them out. I'd call it an 18-year head start to retirement, said Neil Ringquist, Executive Vice President of the Retirement Clearinghouse. Trump accounts may add another layer of complexity to the tax code, but there's nothing to stop account holders from consolidating Trump accounts with other retirement accounts once they reach adulthood. If the money isn't used, it becomes an ordinary traditional IRA in its adult life, Williams said. The initiative will cost an estimated $15 billion through 2034, at a time when the U.S. government faces a $37 trillion national debt. Still, proponents hope the new accounts will inspire a generation of children to gain financial literacy as they build wealth for adulthood. This is a really big step forward, Williams said, in terms of using the American free market and the opportunity for growth and compounding to help people save for whatever comes next. Shouting street preacher brings fight to Supreme Court. MS City says restrictions are not aimed at religion. From Maureen Gropp of USA Today. The city amphitheater in a suburb of Jackson, Mississippi, attracts thousands of concert goers and also evangelical Christians like Gabriel Oliver, or more like Olivier, who frequent the venue hoping to share their faith. But officials in Brandon, Mississippi, said the messages Olivier and others in his group spread, including shouting insults such as whores and Jezebels over a loudspeaker and holding up large signs of aborted fetuses, were too disruptive. The Supreme Court on December the 3rd was to consider whether Olivier, who was arrested for refusing to remain within the city's designated area for protests and demonstrations, can sue the city for restricting his exercise of religious freedom. Is the case about religious freedom? Olivier hopes to sway a conservative court that largely has been sympathetic to allegations about burdens on religious rights. He argues the First Amendment's guarantee of religious liberty is meaningless if he can't challenge the city's restrictions. City officials counter that the rules are not specific to religious activities, and Olivier is improperly trying to get into federal court even though he didn't contest his conviction for violating the city's ordinance in state court. If the Supreme Court allows Olivier's challenge to proceed, they argue, it would open the door to allowing someone accused of a crime to plead guilty to avoid jail time and then turn around and sue. Olivier wants this case to be about religious liberty, the city's lawyer said in a written filing. It is not. There's no dispute, however, about what led to the challenge. Olivier's group preferred to preach at the amphitheater's main intersection, which city officials said made it hard for traffic cops to hear radio traffic. People attending concerts walked in the street to avoid the proselytizing, and officers had to leave their posts to prevent fights from breaking out, according to city officials. After the city of Brandon approved new restrictions on where demonstrations could take place, Olivier and others in his group went to the amphitheater in 2021 on the night of a country music concert. Handed a copy of the rules, Olivier checked out the designated protest area and rejected it. He quickly surmised it was just completely unworkable from what he wanted to do because it separated his message from his intended audience. Nathan Cullum, a lawyer with the First Liberty Institute, who is representing Olivier, said in a virtual discussion of the case hosted by the Federalist Society, And that seemed to be the whole idea behind the law in the first place. After refusing to follow the rules, Olivier was arrested. He was fined $304, given a suspended sentence of 10 days in jail and a year on probation. Rather than contest his conviction, Olivier used a federal civil rights law to sue the city, arguing his constitutional rights had been violated. A federal district judge threw out the suit. That decision was backed by the New Orleans-based Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, which cited a 1994 Supreme Court ruling that a convicted criminal seeking damages for an allegedly unconstitutional conviction must exhaust state court remedies before bringing a federal suit. Olivier argues his situation is different because he has dropped his claim for damages and only wants to prevent the city's rules from being applied to restrict his conduct in the future. You are listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 45 minutes past the hour. Continuing, the Justice Department has weighed in on his behalf, as have several religious organizations, including the Hare Krishna movement. Another member of Olivier's group who was not arrested also challenged Brandon's rules in a separate lawsuit. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals last year rejected that attempt to block the rules, saying the restrictions are not aimed at religious speech and are narrowly tailored to protect public safety and control traffic. Turning to the money section of USA Today, wealth becoming more a feel in 25. Most millionaires don't consider themselves wealthy, from Daniel DeVise of USA Today. $1 million is not what it used to be. Only 36% of American millionaires consider themselves wealthy in 2025, according to new research from Northwestern Mutual. The finding comes from the 2025 Planning in Progress study, updated in early November. It draws on a Harris Poll survey of 4,626 Americans, including 969 people with household investable assets greater than $1 million. Even the wealthiest Americans worry about money, the study found. They fret about having enough of it, deciding how to spend it, and whether to pass it on to their heirs. If $1 million isn't enough, then how much money does it take to feel wealthy? There's no definitive number, said Mark Mascarenhas, a private wealth advisor with Northwestern's Mutual Haven Wealth Advisors. Feeling wealthy has a lot to do with context and perspective, he said. $1 million might go a long way in West Virginia or rural Kansas. In New York or Los Angeles, it might not feel like nearly enough. A millionaire who hangs out with other millionaires is bound to make unflattering comparisons to wealthier friends. All of my clients who are millionaires do not consider themselves wealthy, not by a long shot, Liz Windish, a certified financial planner in Denver, said. People with that much money inevitably spend time with other people who are millionaires and who have even more money than they do, and, just like the rest of us, compare themselves to others who have more, she said. Nearly half of U.S. millionaires say their financial planning needs improvement. Northwestern Mutual found only 53% said they expect to leave an inheritance or charitable gift. It's not that they don't want to leave an inheritance. It's just that they're worried about funding their own retirement, Mascanera has said. The top retirement concern for millionaires, the study found, is the prospect of outliving their savings. The United States is home to nearly 24 million millionaires, the largest number of any nation in U.S. dollar terms, according to the UBS Global Wealth Report. The number of American millionaires grew by more than 1,000 a day last year, UBS reports. Millionaires have become so common, in fact, that the report terms them everyday millionaires if they have assets of $5 million or less. The average 50-something American now has a household net worth of over $1 million, according to the 2022 Federal Survey of Consumer Finances. Household wealth swelled at a record pace during the pandemic. Surging home values and rising stock ownership fed the surge. Average household net worth now tops $500,000 for Americans in their late 30s, For late 40-somethings, it exceeds $750,000. For 50-somethings, it reaches seven figures. But if you're a 50-something and not a millionaire, don't despair. Those numbers are averages, inflated by the super rich. Do you need $1 million to be financially comfortable? Whatever else wealthy might mean in late 2025, surveys attest it means having a net worth over $1 million. In the latest Charles Schwab Modern Wealth Survey, released in July, consumers set the wealth bar at $2.3 million. But if your goal is to be merely comfortable, Schwab found that the little over $800,000 will suffice. It may be mostly semantics, but American consumers see a big difference between the financial goals of comfort and wealth. To Rob Williams, Managing Director of Financial Planning at Schwab, the distinction boils down to needs, wants, and wishes. To many Americans, Williams said, financial comfort means having enough money to meet your needs and wants. To be wealthy means you have enough to satisfy needs and wants and also wishes. To other financial experts, wealth simply means freedom. I believe that the ultimate measure of success is you control how you spend your time, said Michelle Crum, a certified financial planner in Ann Arbor, Michigan. How much does the American dream cost? Inflation has diminished the currency of the American millionaire. It has also raised the cost of achieving the American dream. It now costs $5 million over a lifetime to fund 8 components of the American dream, including home ownership and parenting, according to a September report from Investopedia. Here are the lifetime costs. Retirement, $1.6 million. Owning a home, $957,000. Owning new cars, $900,000. Raising 2 children and paying for college, $876,000. Healthcare, $414,000. Annual vacations, $180,000. Pets, $39,000 in a wedding, $38,200. Just as many millionaires don't feel wealthy, quite a few high-income Americans are struggling from one paycheck to the next. That's the takeaway from a recent Harris poll, which suggests many six-figure earners feel far from wealthy. 1 in 3 six-figure earners describe themselves as financially distressed. 2 in 3 said six-figure pay is not a sign of wealth. The survey, released November the 14th, reached 2,109 Americans. 3/4 of the six-figure earners said they had used a credit card recently because they were short of cash. People used to feel when you got to 6 figures or above that it was a sign of financial stability, said Libby Rodney, Chief Strategy Officer and futurist at the Harris poll, speaking to USA Today earlier in November. And now we just see that as a sign of surviving and being in survival mode. Gen Z is going broke to look rich. Many admit to lying about financial success. From Rachel Hale of USA Today. On Instagram and TikTok, aspirational lifestyle content is everywhere. Pages at Billionaire Harbor, at millionaire.aesthetic, and at Luxury World Traveler post aesthetic photos of Lamborghinis, super yachts, and designer handbags. Influencers like Daniel Mack and Becca Bloom have turned wealthy lifestyles into personal brands, and there are entire corners of TikTok dedicated to teaching viewers how to achieve old money and quiet luxury looks. In today's influencer economy, money is an essential part of the aesthetic. The cost is that more young people feel pressure to fake it, to fit in, even when it means hurting their finances. A new nationwide study from Credit One Bank found that more than half of Gen Z admit to lying or exaggerating about their financial success online. What is financial flexing? Gen Z is seeing a stream of content from people posting about living in luxury high-rises in big cities, dining at Michelin restaurants, and jetting to expensive destinations. Even from their friends, it feels like social media has become a highlight reel of perfectly placed fallscape stoops, friends giving dinners, and foreign vacations. Aja Evans, a licensed mental health counselor and financial therapist, says that Gen Z also wants to show the best of what their life might look like. even though many of these luxuries aren't realistic on an everyday American salary, especially for young people starting in the workforce. People will push themselves past their own financial boundaries to spend more to make sure that they're looking a certain way online because it appears as if everybody is looking the same way, Evans says. Those habits extend to people's dating lives too. The study found that 38% of people admit to going into debt or damaging their credit score to impress someone, and those rates are higher among men, 46% of whom said they'd overdraft their accounts to impress their date. Evans says she sees financial flexing in some of her clients, though they might not recognize it that way. It can come up with weddings and bachelor trips, destination birthdays, and engagement parties when a client considers going into debt because they don't want to miss out or seem like an uninvolved friend. More often than not, though, Evans says it's the little decisions that add up to send people into debt. A daily coffee, $50 or $100 here and there, and window shopping that turns into actual shopping. At the end of the month, when we're adding it up, I'm like, did you know you spent $800, Evans says. They're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea, because it feels a lot smaller when they're doing it on a more incremental basis. What does financial flexing say about young people? Gen Z, the cohort born between 1997 and 2012, is increasingly anxious about their financial situation. Many are settled with student loans and entering a slowing U.S. labor market amid skyrocketing costs of living. They say they feel less confident about reaching financial milestones like owning a home. Evans says that for Gen Z, it's often easier to justify splurge spending on a nice dinner or a new purse, whether it's to feel better about their lives or to mask insecurities about not reaching traditional milestones at the expected age. It can be easy for someone to say, oh well, I'm going to be saving forever, Evans says. Keeping up with the Joneses certainly isn't a new idea, but Evans points out that the difference is that these pressures now live in the palm of your hand with access to view lifestyles across the world. She advises her clients to keep that in perspective. You are seeing the best of somebody's life, Evans says, adding it's important to keep that in perspective. You're listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for Thursday, December 4th, 2025 on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your reader for this first hour has been Jim Duffy.
Extreme. If you're worried about food, heating assistance, or other basic needs for your household, help is available. Call 211 for local food pantries, meal services, and other supports in your neighborhood. That's 211. Available 24 hours a day, every day, with free and confidential referrals. Get the help you need today.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's issue of the USA Today. Your reader for this hour is Ken Kuminski. From the sports page, NCAA volleyball tournament. Set up perfectly. Nebraska undefeated under Danny Busboom Kelly. Poised for NCAA women's volleyball title run. By Cindy Henderson. When the Nebraska women's volleyball team steps onto the court, inspiration is always within reach for Harper Murray. All the outside hitter has to do is look down at her fingers, which she carefully tapes before every match. She inscribes 27 on the tape, binding her left ring finger in honor of her father, Vada Murray, who died when she was 5 years old. He wore number 27 while playing football at Michigan. Murray then writes former coach John Cook's initials on her left pointer finger, a father figure who helped her grow as a player. She also adds Cornhuskers head coach Donnie Busboom Kelly's initials on her middle finger as a reminder to lay it all on the line. The initials on her right hand changes every year. Every year for the past 3 years, I have written the location of the Final Four, Murray told USA Today Sports. On my pointer finger and my middle finger, I have the letters KC, which is Kansas City, which is where the NCAA tournament is held this year. Nebraska was named the top overall seed during the NCAA tournament selection show on Sunday, November 30th, and will begin its journey to Kansas City against Long Island University at 8 p.m. Eastern Time Friday. The Cornhuskers, who have won 5 national titles, fell short of their first since 2017, losing to Penn State in the semifinals last season. Nebraska, 30-0, has since kicked off the Busboom Kelly era with its first undefeated season since 2000. The Huskers will make their 44th consecutive NCAA tournament appearance after winning the Big Ten title while dropping 6 sets the entire season. Although Busboom Kelly said whoever is coaching Nebraska would be doing well, her players argue otherwise. When Busboom Kelly came in here, that Nebraska standard wasn't lost at all. She knew what she wanted, and she really pushes us to reach that level. Nebraska middle blocker Andy Jackson told USA Today Sports, "She's been in our shoes before, and she can really relate to us, and she knows what we're feeling, and she knows what it takes to win." Long before succeeding longtime coach and mentor John Cook in January, Busboom had already done a lot of winning at Nebraska. The Cortland, Nebraska native won national titles as a player in 2006 and as an assistant coach in 2015. But even the best coaches have their limitations. During an appearance on the Welcome to the Party podcast last month, Busboom Kelly described her coaching style compared to Cook, who was so good for so long, but he had his way. He had his plan, and there wasn't a lot of deviating from that. We're really a collaborative group. I'm huge on that as a head coach, Busboom Kelly said. I really trust my players to give me honest feedback. It never has to be my way or the highway. Our team has grasped that. They love the collaboration and they love the ownership. Busboom Kelly's credentials and reputation earned instant buy-in from the team, but it was her commitment to empowering her players that took the elite program to another level this season. Anyone off our bench, any of our game changers, they can go in and the level stays the exact same, Jackson said. It's rare. I don't think at a lot of programs can say your bench can be the second best team in the country. We have the privilege of getting to say that, and Busboom Kelly has just been such a huge part of that. She just gives us so much confidence, and we know that with her as our coach, we just can play fearless. Nebraska's 3 Player of the Year finalists. When the AVCA Player of the Year semifinalists were announced in November, Nebraska had 3 of the 14 players on the list: Jackson, Murray, and junior setter Bergen Riley. It's another example of the Huskers' depth. We have arguably the best in each position for the country, Jackson said. We have the best setter in the country. We have the best outside in the country. And I think it just shows how strong our team is, especially at that front row that we have. When Harper Murray, Bergen Riley, and I are up, we always give each other a smile because we know what we have to offer. The trio has led Nebraska to the nation's top hitting percentage, .352, and the 4th highest kill per set mark, 14.70. Murray leads the Huskers with 3.55 kills per set and is averaging 2.15 digs per set. Jackson is averaging 2.75 kills per set and .471 hitting with 1.13 blocks per set, while Riley is averaging a team high 10.31 assists per set and 2.73 digs per set. We've been side by side for 3 years, and it's such a special role because we just know that all of us have been through thick and thin together, and our bond is so strong, Jackson added. Huskers blocking out outside noise. Bus Boom Kelly knew Nebraska would be a title contender this season. I was expecting us to be great, but certainly not undefeated. They continue to exceed our expectations. Nebraska has asserted its dominance, winning 48 straight sets between September 20th and November 14th, a streak that came to an end in the Huskers' 3-1 win over UCLA. Players said dropping the set was relieving and freeing. It was just getting shoved down our throats how much Nebraska was winning. Every time you opened any platform, it was there, Jackson said. After we lost that set, I looked at my teammates and I was like, that is the best thing that could have happened to us. It's over now. The weight is off our shoulders. We don't have to hold it up anymore, because I do think, as much as we like to say play free, when that outside noise creeps in, it can just feel like there's kind of a weight on the court while we're playing. Murray added, at some point, we're going to drop a set, and we don't want that to come in the NCAA tournament and not be prepared and not know how to come back from it. Playing volleyball in Nebraska comes with a national spotlight and relentless attention. As Bus Boom Kelly put it, Nebraska volleyball is so serious, and that is, of course, why people come here. But as with any storied program, there's pressure to execute. There is a standard, and we are expected to win. But we don't want to put too much pressure on ourselves, Jackson said. One thing that makes being at Nebraska so special is the team culture that we have. We do such a good job of just caring for each other, especially when that noise starts to get really big towards the end of the season. We just remember where our value actually comes from, because there can be so much outside noise and so many things being said with our team clustered all over the media. There can be lots of negativity. Murray said she and her teammates set social media limits to ensure the group maintains focus and aren't consumed by the onslaught of attention. Not everyone's going to be perfect and know how to handle criticism online or have a boundary for themselves, but that's something that just comes with experience. And I think a lot of the older girls have done a good job guiding the newcomers. When the Huskers step on the court ahead of first serve, their attention will be on the team. Before every game, we always say what matters are the 6 on the court and the 10 girls on the bench, not anyone else, Murray said. The biggest thing for us is focusing on what we have going on the court. Now switching to college football, Duke in Field would dumb down the CFP, College Football Playoffs, by Blake Topmeyer. Tell me what is wrong with this picture. Unranked Duke at 7-5 remains alive for the college football playoff, while 10-2 Vanderbilt is out. Try explaining that to someone who doesn't closely follow this sport. Heck, try explaining that to someone who follows the sport but watched Duke lose to UConn plus 4 other teams. We could be headed toward a truly stupid CFP bracket, and I'm not blaming the committee. The committee just ranks the teams. The committee didn't create this system. A system wherein, and I want to reiterate this, a 7-5 Duke team is alive and a 10-2 Vanderbilt is out. 5-loss Duke can still qualify for playoff. Yes, really. The committee, by rule, is required to select 5 conference champions as automatic qualifiers. If unranked Duke upsets number 17 Virginia this weekend, it would be eligible for one of those auto bids. Yes, Duke might need help to secure an auto bid. Number 25 James Madison probably needs to lose in the Sun Belt Championship game. But I repeat once more, 5-loss Duke is alive and 2-loss Vanderbilt is out. Dumb. 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 Duke is alive. Number 13 Texas, which just upset previously undefeated Texas A&M, is out. Dumb. Duke could win the ACC and qualify with 5 losses, and the Big 12's number 11 BYU probably would miss the college football playoff if it finishes 11-2, with both losses coming to number 4 Texas Tech. Dumb. The playoff's size is not the problem, and I could live with the committee's rankings. The top 12 teams in these latest rankings would create a bang-up bracket. SEC boss Greg Sankey would squabble about Texas and Vanderbilt being omitted, but once the moaning stopped, the bracket would look pretty stout. Imagine number 12 Miami at number 5 Oregon in round 1. You in for that? I'd be in. Trouble is, we're not going to get that because the ACC standings and tiebreaker application has Duke headed to the conference championship game instead of 10-2 Miami. Duke is one of 5 teams tied for second in the ACC standings. The Blue Devils own the worst overall record of the team tied, but the conference tiebreaker rules have Duke headed to Charlotte. So a Duke team that lost to Illinois by 26 points could be playoff bound, while a Miami team that beat Notre Dame is vulnerable of getting sent to an also-ran bowl. Dumb. We're not there yet. Virginia could save some sanity for this bracket by beating and eliminating Duke, winning the ACC, and snatching one of those auto bids. Are automatic bids the enemy of a top-notch bracket? I've previously shown support for this 12-team playoff model, but this screwy scenario of Duke being alive for the playoff in the first week of December, while undeniably better teams are out of the mix, makes me question whether any automatic bids are worth retaining, as the playoff's future size and shape go under evaluation. Or should all bids just be awarded via at-large selection? Why should we have auto bids when conference champions aren't necessarily even the best team in their own league? They might just happen to be the team that drew the easiest conference schedule, or they caught a good break from the tiebreaker rules. When conferences were smaller, we could say with a straight face conference championship games generally produced the conference's best teams as champion. Not anymore. Conference expansion and the elimination of divisions disrupted the utopia of conferences crowning worthy champs. The ACC swelled to 17 teams and nixed divisions in favor of a united standing. Duke's win against Cal pushed it a step closer to winning the Atlantic Coast Conference. Think about that for a moment. Each ACC team played only 8 conference games. Put differently, Duke could win a 17-team conference and become eligible for a playoff auto bid after facing less than half the teams in the conference. That's dumb. Perhaps the playoff would be better served with no more conference championship games. No more automatic bids. Expand the regular season by 1 week, giving the committee one additional data point for every team in the first week of December. This wouldn't lengthen the season. You'd just be swapping in a 13th regular game in place of conference championship weekend. Then rank the 12 best teams and congratulate Duke on its bid to the Gator Bowl. As a reminder, you're listening to a reading of articles of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 16 minutes past the hour. Now, switching to the NBA, Thunder on pace for historic season by Lorenzo Reyes. The story of this Oklahoma City Thunder team is best told in numbers, and let's start with this one. Late Tuesday night, December 2nd, with a 124-112 victory over the Golden State Warriors, the Thunder improved to 21-1, becoming the third team in NBA history to record such a start or better. Entering the day, they led the NBA in defensive rating, allowing 103.6 points per 100 possessions, which was 7 fewer than the next closest team. Entering the night, they led the league with a net rating of 15.3. Reigning MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander recorded his 94th consecutive 20-point game, trailing only Wilt Chamberlain, 126. SGA ranks second in the league in scoring. They are far and away the most dominant team in the NBA, with stars often resting in fourth quarters because games are so out of hand. But it's one other number that Oklahoma City is chasing, 74. Not only are the Thunder on pace to become the first team in 10 seasons to reach 70 wins, they pose a legitimate threat to eclipse the record-setting 73 the Warriors achieved in 2015-2016. After all, a 70-win season would represent just a modest increase over last season when they won 68. To that point, OKC is already superbly locked in. Its roster is balanced and deep, and coaches and players are almost obsessively nerdy about basketball. When asked before Tuesday's game about how Oklahoma City could improve even with their near unblemished record, Coach Mark Deneau made it clear that the Thunder would not settle. I think the first thing is, and this isn't blowing smoke, it's like none of that matters tonight, Deneau said of his team's early success. All the stuff that we've done well to this point doesn't carry over. Tonight's a new opportunity. The better team tonight will win. That's the competitive challenge, and that's one of the beauties of our players. That competitive challenge turns them on. Jalen Williams, 24, was a first-time All-Star last season, recovering from a torn ligament in his right wrist. He missed the first 19 games this season. Williams is a righty, unable to shoot with his right hand over the offseason. He became so bored and frustrated that he worked exclusively on his left, even developing an offhand jumper. But the Thunder are also built to smother and overwhelm opponents. They pick up full court pressure just as easily as they clamp down in half-court sets. They emphasize efficiency, ranking second in turnover percentage, 12.4%, and first in turnovers forced, 17.9 per game. They don't score in runs or bursts. They score in avalanches that squeeze the life out of opponents. Tuesday night, the Warriors went on a third-quarter run to close the margin from 22, eventually taking a 4-point lead in the fourth, 103-99. Oklahoma City responded by not pressing and ripping off a 25-9 run to close the game. Granted, the Timber have played the NBA's easiest schedule thus far and have the league's toughest remaining slate, so it won't be an easy path. Oklahoma City will have to evade the pitfalls of complacency. Their lone loss was an aberration, a 2-point defeat on November 5th against the Portland Trail Blazers. For the Thunder to make history, they will not be able to let up. Tuesday night's opposing coach, Steve Kerr, knows all about that. He orchestrated that 2015-16 team's run to 73 wins, surpassing the 1995-96 Bulls, a team in which Kerr was a player. Overall, a team mindset of zero agendas, Kerr said prior to the game when asked what it takes to get to 70 victories. Just win every night. Obviously great talent, but I think high IQ players. The two teams you're referring to that I was part of both had really, really high IQs, individually and as a team. That's what I see with OKC. Really, really smart players, great coach, really connected. They're on pace to shatter the record. It's pretty remarkable what they're doing. The scary part for the rest of the NBA, that is that the Thunder are the sixth youngest team in the league, with an average age of 24.53 entering the season. They are coming off an NBA championship. They know what it takes to get there and know how they can get even better. They have a deeper level of confidence now that they've won it all, Kerr said. Then the continuity is so powerful. All their actions that they're running, they're so comfortable with. They've expanded their offense a little bit, but they have a little more motion than they did a year ago. The wild card, however, is that the more the Thunder win, the greater the pressure intensifies. These are all things that, in my experience, happen after the championship. After the first one, Kerr said, you just got a little different swagger, a little different belief. But yeah, next year is the harder one. Now from the NFL, Steelers waive 6-time Pro Bowl selection by Michael Middlehurst Schwartz. The Pittsburgh Steelers are moving on from one of their veteran free agent acquisitions from this past offseason to make room for a more recent addition. The team is waiving cornerback Darius Slay Jr. and promoting Asante Samuel Jr. from the practice squad, according to multiple reports. Slay, 34, signed a 1-year, $10 million deal with the Steelers this offseason, with the team envisioning that he would hold down the starting spot opposing Joey Porter Jr. The 6-time Pro Bowl selection started 9 games, but largely struggled, surrendering a 103.7 passer rating when targeted this season, according to Next Gen Stats. In the Steelers' loss to the Buffalo Bills on Sunday, November 30th, Slay was a healthy scratch, with Samuel playing 28 snaps after being elevated from the practice squad. Samuel signed with the Steelers in mid-November after undergoing a spinal fusion procedure this offseason. The 26-year-old had remained unsigned throughout the early portion of the season and not played since a shoulder injury ended his 2024 campaign with the Los Angeles Chargers after just 4 games. Pittsburgh, which has dropped 3 of its last 4 games, will face the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday, December 7th for the AFC North lead. Steelers claim wide receiver Thielen off waivers. The Steelers continue to reshape their roster Tuesday by claiming 2-time Pro Bowl wide receiver Adam Thielen off waivers. Thielen was granted a split by the Minnesota Vikings on Monday so that he could play for a playoff contender in his final pro season. In Minnesota, he served in a limited capacity after helping fill in during Jordan Addison's 3-game suspension to start the season. Thielen joins the Steelers' offense in need of help in the receiving corps. Beyond DK Metcalf, no pass catcher has more than 300 yards this season. And now a little bit from men's professional golf. Cup loss still hurts Bradley by Adam Schupak. Nassau, Bahamas. There's still a lot to unpack from the U.S. team losing to Europe on home soil in the biennial Ryder Cup. But at least Keegan Bradley doesn't have the contents of his suitcase growing moldy this time. Bradley said no one had asked him yet, but he knew it was just a matter of time before somebody did. Yes, he has unpacked his Ryder Cup bag from Bethpage Black, where he served as the U.S. captain in defeat in late September. "I'm done with that," said Bradley, who famously swore that he wouldn't unpack his bag from the 2012 Ryder Cup defeat as a player until he avenged that loss. "I looked at it and I thought, you know what? Screw this. I'm unpacking." The bag from 2012 remains sealed in his garage. "That one is going in the ground with me, maybe," he added. While Bradley unpacked his bag, this time there's still plenty of scar tissue from the U.S. loss on home soil. "The darkest time of my life, probably. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. Certainly, definitely of my career," he said on Tuesday, December 2nd, during a press conference ahead of the Hero World Challenge at Albany Club. "I have this gaping hole in my career now that I don't know that I'll ever be able to fill. This isn't something that you lose the Masters, you lose a tournament. I'm going to work extra hard to get back and win. Being the captain of the Ryder Cup team is not something you can work hard for. It's just something that's sort of elected on you." The PGA of America has yet to announce Bradley's successor for the 2027 Ryder Cup at Adare Manor in Ireland. Tiger Woods was offered the position at Bethpage, but politely declined before Bradley ended up accepting it, and is considered the front-runner again. However, when Woods was asked at his own press conference if he'd be interested in the job this go-around, his only response was, "No one's asked me about captaining the next U.S. team." Bradley said Woods can call his shot when he's ready. "I think if Tiger wants to do this, he's going to do it," Bradley said. "Tiger is not only a hero to all of us that would be on this team, but he's also an incredible leader and a person that everyone would love to play for. But I'm pretty sure when he wants to do this, he's going to get to be able to do it." Would Bradley like another chance at the job? "Of course I would love to do it again. I would love to avenge that loss, but that's not up to me," he said. The Ryder Cup loss has weighed heavily on Bradley, who won the Travelers Championship in June, made it to East Lake, and finished tied for 7th at the Tour Championship. At age 39, he rose as high as number 7 in the world and currently sits at number 14. In many ways, it was a banner year, which he compared to his rookie season in 2011, when he won twice, including the PGA Championship. But when asked how he would grade his year, Bradley said losing the Ryder Cup meant he had flunked. "It's an F," he said. "You've got to go and win that, and this grade's different. It's really tough to grade. I was talking to my coach," he said. "Remember you won this year?" I was like, "No, I don't remember that at all." Bradley got a taste of redemption last Friday at the Skins game when he won 11 skins, 9 of them on 2 holes, and $2.1 million in a made-for-TV exhibition. He beat 2 of the European Ryder Cup stalwarts, Shane Lowry and Tommy Fleetwood, and U.S. Ryder Cupper Xander Schauffele. Even at that low-key affair, Bradley couldn't escape the Ryder Cup talk. When Lowry sank a 10-foot birdie putt at the 3rd hole, a dagger that spoiled Bradley winning the Skins, he smiled and said, "I've just spent the last few months breaking Keegan Bradley's heart." The Skins game also served as a good warm-up for Bradley before the Hero World Challenge, where the 8-time Tour winner is making his first start on tour since the Tour Championship in August. Just being in the select 20-man field served as a reminder to Bradley of just how well he had played this season. "I went years without being in this tournament, and I really feel a sense of accomplishment just playing in this tournament," said Bradley, who was making his 8th career appearance at the Hero World Challenge. It's one of the toughest tournaments to get into in the world, and one that certainly requires a season grade of better than an F. Now, the Hero World Challenge will be played this weekend at the Albany Golf Course in Nassau, Bahamas. It'll be on TV on the Golf Channel on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and Peacock and NBC on Sunday. That is a 72-hole total shot. That's 263, shot by Scotty Scheffler last year, which tied the tournament record since the event moved to Albany with Bubba Watson in 2015. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is now 31 minutes past the hour. Now switching back to college football, Penn State football loses top head coach target, BYU's Kalani Sitake, by Frank Bodani. Penn State football appears to have missed out on its top head coaching candidate in its longer than expected search. Longtime BYU head coach Kalani Sitake agreed to a long-term contract extension to remain in Provo, Utah, university officials announced Tuesday, December 2nd. This came after news emerged on Monday that Penn State officials, including athletic director Pat Kraft, had zeroed in on Sitake as their lead target. The first such public proclamation of any sort in this 50-day plus search since James Franklin was fired in mid-October. Sitake, 50, had garnered Penn State's prime attention while leading BYU to double-digit victories in 4 of the past 6 years, including back-to-back 11-win seasons. His Cougars ranked 11th with play in this weekend's Big 12 championship game with a college football playoff bid on the line. He did that all in relative national obscurity, first leading wayward BYU as an independent and then helping it transition into the Big 12. His teams have never played in a top-rate postseason game, the best perhaps last year's Alamo Bowl victory over Colorado. Sitake's rejection means Penn State officials must continue to lock up a new program leader, as many of college football's top openings have already been filled. Any hire now will certainly come after PSU's depleted 2026 recruiting class begins finalizing their commitments on Wednesday's early National Signing Day, and quite possible after the Lions learn of their expected bowl destination this weekend. Where does Penn State's search go now? It already has missed on potential candidates who signed new deals with their current teams, from Indiana's Kurt Cignetti and Texas A&M's Mike Elko to Missouri's Eli Drinkwitz and Nebraska's Matt Rule. School officials would circle back on potential candidates like Louisville head coach Jeff Brom, a Pennsylvania native. In the meantime, Franklin is busy starting his new job leading Virginia Tech. It's unclear yet how the immediate transition of running the Lions will transpire, with the team beginning preparations for an expected bowl game between Christmas and New Year's Day. Whoever will become Penn State's new head coach will be only the 5th since Rip Engel arrived in State College in 1950. He'll replace Franklin, who earned a 145 record in 12 seasons and was known for program building, recruiting, and consistently beating opponents he was favored to beat. Franklin, who was hired to lead Virginia Tech 2 weeks ago, is tied with Engel for the second most head coaching victories at Penn State, behind Joe Paterno's major college football record, 409. Franklin was criticized most harshly for his Penn State team's rarely ever winning marquee matchups. The Nittany Lions were just 15-29 against ranked opponents and a desultory 4-21 against top 10 teams. Brian Hartline will take South Florida job. by Craig Meyer. One of college football's most heralded assistants has gotten his first head coaching job. Ohio State offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach Brian Hartline is expected to be hired as the next head coach at South Florida, according to multiple reports published on Wednesday, December 3rd. He'll replace Alex Golesh, who left the Bulls to become the head coach at Auburn 3 days earlier. According to Yahoo Sports, Hartline has signed a 6-year deal with South Florida and will remain with Ohio State for the upcoming college football playoff. Hartline has been at Ohio State since 2017 and has been instrumental in the Buckeyes' rise as an offensive powerhouse centered around college-turned-NFL stars at wide receiver. Among the players Hartline has coached are Jeremiah Smith, Marvin Harrison Jr., Chris Olave, Jackson Smith Ngiba, Emeka Egbuka, and Garrett Wilson. Over the past 4 years, 5 wide receivers whom Hartline coached have been taken in the first round of the NFL draft. A former Ohio State wide receiver himself, the 37-year-old Hartline is in his 3rd season as the Buckeyes offensive coordinator. He shared the title last season with Chip Kelly when Ohio State won the national championship. This season, with Hartline as the sole offensive coordinator, the number 1 Buckeyes are averaging 37 points per game heading into the Big Ten championship game Saturday, December 6th against number 2 Indiana. It's the 13th highest mark among 136 FBS programs. South Florida is 9-3 this season and went 23-15 in 3 seasons under Golesh. Given the size of the school, the program's location in a talent-rich state, and the opening of a new stadium in the next few years, South Florida is widely considered one of the best jobs outside of the Power 4 conferences. Now we'll switch to the Life section. The Year in Television, the 10 shows you need to see. Some Flew Under the Radar, by Kelly Lawler. In real life, 2025 has been a chaotic year. We've navigated the beginning of a divisive presidential term, the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, witnessed a pope from Chicago be elected, a pop star in space, natural disasters, and history-making events almost daily. In the fictional worlds that fill our TV screens, when we look for just a little distraction at the end of our days, things haven't been particularly calm either. But in a good way. We're talking about Emmy and Hearts and Minds winning. The Pit on HBO Max. We're talking about a tiny British drama on Netflix that took off with viewership and cultural conversation. And we're also talking about a couple of shows you've probably never heard of all. While TV this year has been full of viral hate watches, such as Hulu's disastrous but renewed All's Fair, and some of the biggest shows of all time, such as the final seasons of Netflix's Squid Game and Stranger Things. What we loved most was less glitzy and perhaps less glamorous, but no less gorgeous to behold. As the year winds to a close, we hope you'll give these 10 absolutely superb TV shows a watch. You might be surprised by what you find. Number 10, Overcompensating on Amazon Prime. Underpinning every thigh-slapping comedy bit in Amazon's raucous and irreverent college comedy, Overcompensating, is a deeply real understanding of the messy and imperfect way that human beings transition from flailing young teens into flailing young adults. Although it's set in our TikTok times, Overcompensating could represent anyone's college experience, even if they're not a timid gay jock trapped in the closet, such as protagonist Benito Skinner, also the series creator. Benny and pal Carmen's Wally Barham hilarious and relatable journey through their freshman year is a cringeworthy pleasure. Funny, heartfelt, and backed by great beats from Charlie XCX, also a producer and guest star. Just look away during all the vomit and defecation gags. Number 9, Task on HBO. Mare of Easttown creator Brad Inglesby returned to the Philadelphia working-class suburb for this dark and gripping crime drama starring Mark Ruffalo. The actor plays a depressed and traumatized FBI agent leading a task force investigating a series of home invasions targeting drug dens in the area. Told from the point of view of Ruffalo's lawman and everyman, Tom Pelphrey, who surprisingly is leading the robberies. Task is addictive and compelling, a tale of two cities set in the same Delaware County town. Packed with regional accents and references, Task contained multitudes of theme, thesis, and tone. It is the deliciously complex story that has tense plot twists as well as deep meditations on family and what we are owed. North of North, Netflix. This comedy set in a tiny Arctic village that's north of what you think of as north probably flew below your radar this spring. Gleeful and bubbling with energy, North is well worth a watch. It stars the instantly magnetic Anna Lambie as Siaja, a young woman living a seemingly perfect life in her indigenous community as wife and mother. But Siaja walked down the aisle and had a child at such a young age that she never had time to find her own identity or set her own goals. In the opening episode of the comedy, she finally takes control of her destiny in the most awkward and humorous way possible. Full of cutesy, but not in a bad way, sitcom hijinks and set in a deeply unique but strangely familiar locale, North will charm its way into your heart, no matter how cold. Number 7, Taskmaster on YouTube. If you've never heard of this outrageously hilarious British comedy panel show, you'll likely will soon. 20 seasons and hundreds of hilarious tasks in Taskmaster is finally reaching a level of cultural saturation this side of the pond that its stars are showing up on Late Night with Seth Meyers, and American comedians including Jason Mantzoukas are lining up to take part. The series has a simple formula. 5 comedians are given a silly task to perform, from life-size games of chutes and ladders to putting wetsuits on mannequins, and they are given points on their performance by the taskmaster British comedian Greg Davies. Created by Alex Horn, who plays the subservient assistant in the episodes, the show has a unique talent for mining comedy from complete mundanity and inanity, and somehow gets more creative with each passing season. Seasons 19 and 20, both of which aired this year, are outrageously funny, offering the kind of full-body, deeply cathartic laughs you need after a year as chaotic and unpredictable as this one. Boots on Netflix. The last TV show that legendary producer Norman Lear worked on before he died in 2023. Boots has that ineffable charm going for it that you find in so many of the producer's iconic shows. There is a magnetism to the wry humor of the dramedy about Cameron Miles Heitzer, a young gay man trying to survive the U.S. Marine Corps boot camp in the pre-Don't Ask, Don't Tell era of the military in 1990. Despite the muddy obstacle courses and shouty drill instructors, Boots has the sweetest, most pure heart of any show this year. Like all the best coming-of-age stories, Boots is at once both specific and universal. Cameron's journey is infinitely relatable as he adorably blunders his way through the trials and tribulations the Marines have to offer their cadets. You can't help but root for him. Number 5, Death by Lightning on Netflix. A new subgenre of historical fiction has emerged on TV, and you might call it the historical romp. Talented writers and actors are bringing dry, crusty stories from our middle school social studies classes to life in ways both surprising and surprisingly fun, without sacrificing the gravity of their subject material. In 2024, Apple TV did this with the Abraham Lincoln assassination series, Manhunt. And this year, Netflix has turned a different presidential death into one of the best shows of the year. Lightning, about President James Garfield, a steadfast Michael Shannon, and the man who murdered him, Succession star Matthew McFadden, is riotous and revelatory. A fun series illuminating the fascinating dramas from the 19th century, with actors including Bradley Whitford, Nick Offerman, and Betty Gilpin in tow. Lightning is the most informed fun you'll have this year, all in a tight 4-hour binge watch. Number 4, The American Revolution, PBS. If our number 1 pick for the year is a story of how we live now, more on that below, in the United States, this exquisite 12-hour documentary is the vital story of how we got here. Leave it to Ken Burns, America's favorite history teacher, to bring our origin story into such stark and often unflattering relief on the eve of our 250th birthday. Like his masterpiece documentaries Civil War in 1990 and the Vietnam War 2017, Revolution is a steady, didactic, and unvarnished look at a defining moment in American history. The documentarian, together with co-directors Sarah Bolstein and David Schmidt, tells the story of the Boston Tea Party and Yorktown and George Washington you already know, with all the parts you don't. Revolution does not hold back or sugarcoat the violence or discomfort of the story. It is a discomfort we all should sit with at the time we celebrate July 4th with hot dogs and fireworks. Complexity is our friend, and Burns makes it all the easier to understand. Number 3, Adolescence on Netflix. A quiet British crime drama about the dangers of online male toxicity to young boys ballooned through the sheer power of its storytelling to become one of Netflix's most watched series of all time. The moment you set your eyes on the dazzling, hypnotizing 4-part limited series, each episode is filmed in one tantalizing, long single shot. You can't look away from the everyday horror of the story of middle schooler Jamie Miller's, Owen Cooper, brutal murder of a girl in his class. In addition to setting viewership records, the series has sparked deep conversations about the internet's dangerous manosphere and the real harm that social media can cause to children in our increasingly digital age. It's the most horrifying parable any parent can witness. Number 2, Andor on Disney+. When you take away the kitsch, the lightsabers, the creatures and droids designed to sell toys, and all the fanboy baggage from Star Wars, and add impeccable scripts, performances, and the deeply political message, the franchise has always been telling. You get the wonder that is Andor. The second season of Disney's Star Wars prequel series is a transcendent and sublime as the 2022 first, a story of fighting against tyranny, where there is no straight line from good intentions to good outcomes. Star Diego Luna's haunting performance as the title character grounds the grim series, and Andor becomes a sadly relevant, morally gray, and deeply compelling portrait of resistance amid love, friendship, trauma, and everything between. The very best story that the Star Wars machine has turned out since the original trilogy. Yes, better than all the rest. Andor will forever stay in the hearts and minds of its audience. And number 1, The Pit, HBO Max. It's almost a cliche to talk about how superb HBO Max's medical drama is at this point in the year. The series, starring longtime ER doc Noah Weil, back in Scrubs as a beleaguered Pittsburgh emergency room doctor, burst onto the TV scene in January and blew away every single person who watched it. No TV show from the past half-decade has better illustrated the way we live now in the United States, and no show has done it so artfully. With Weil at the head and a group of magnetic and talented young whippersnappers right behind him in masks and gloves, Pitt is the kind of must-see TV we haven't seen since ER was the biggest show around. A truckload or ambulance load of Emmys and acclaim later, Pitt has become synonymous with the very best of what television can be in 2025. Relevant, heart-palpitating, thoughtful, emotional, tense, thrilling, devastating, and joyful. We'll be clocking in for the 2026 shift as soon as it starts. And now from the 35th Gotham Awards, Just an Accident delivers a message by Patrick Ryan. One trophy after another, one battle after another, kicked off what is sure to be a fruitful awards season for Paul Thomas Anderson's shaggy, pulse-pounding masterpiece, picking a Best Feature at the 35th Annual Gotham Awards on Monday, December 1st. Taking the podium at Cipriana Wall Street, Anderson sweetly wished a happy anniversary to his wife, Saturday Night Live vet Maya Rudolph. I met a woman who made me a better filmmaker. Thank you, Maya. It was the highest profile win of the 3-hour event, which saw starry Oscar hopefuls Hamnet and Begonia walk home empty-handed, while acclaimed international films My Father's Shadow and Solely Man's Story claimed major hardware. In between courses of steak with asparagus and chocolate layer cake, myriad A-listers took the stage for last-ditch awards, campaigning before the Critics' Choice and Golden Globe nominations are announced next week. Julia Roberts accepting a visionary tribute honor with After the Hunt. Director Luca Guadagnino jokingly cut her speech short for a bathroom break. I didn't realize how long this was going to go on, and I didn't regulate my water intake, she quipped. Adam Sandler, meanwhile, went on an uproarious, expletive-filled tangent as he presented Jay Kelly filmmaker Noah Baumbach with a special director tribute, at one point calling out his former agent. He moved back to Omaha and sells weed. He's, expletive, useless, Sandler deadpanned. Here's what else you missed from this year's ceremony. Jackman makes Ryan Reynolds jealous with Kate Hudson. Taking the stage for the Gotham's first ever musical tribute award, Hugh Jackman and Kate Hudson sang a few bars of Neil Diamond's Sweet Caroline, a playful nod to their new movie, Song Sung Blue, about a real-life Diamond tribute band. This is so cool, Jackman said, before acknowledging his mock rivalry with his Deadpool and Wolverine co-star. This will make Ryan Reynolds insanely jealous. The eager-to-please showman, who was supported by girlfriend Sutton Foster in the audience, went on to make a bold prediction about Hudson, who was back in the awards hunt a quarter century after Almost Famous. Kate Hudson is not only one of the great stars of our business, she is a consummate actor, Jackman said. I believe this time she's going to get an Oscar. Guillermo del Toro denounces AI. Isaac champions immigrants. A vocal proponent against AI in Hollywood, Guillermo del Toro didn't mince words as he accepted the Vanguard tribute for Frankenstein alongside the monster movie's star Oscar Isaac and Jacob Elordi. Every single frame of this film was willfully made by humans, for humans, Del Toro said, as he thanked the entire cast and crew. The designers, builders, makeup, wardrobe team, cinematographers, composers, editors, this tribute belongs to all of them. I would like to extend our gratitude and say, expletive AI. Isaac similarly made a plea for the Netflix film's timeliness, noting how he is Guatemalan, Elordi is Australian, and Del Toro is Mexican. Immigrants, we get the job done, Isaac proclaimed, invoking one of the more famous lines from Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton. It was just an accident, director triumphs after prison sentence. The Gotham's biggest winner was It Was Just an Accident, which scooped up 3 prizes for Best Original Screenplay, International Feature, and Director Jafar Panahi. The awards sweep came just hours after Panahi's lawyer announced that the courageous filmmaker has been sentenced in absentia to a 1-year prison sentence in his native Iran after he was convicted of propaganda against the system. It Was Just an Accident, which won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, is a darkly comedic thriller following a group of Iranian political prisoners as they mull revenge on a man who may have been their tormentor. On stage, Panahi dedicated his trophies to independent artists in Iran and around the world, honoring filmmakers who keep the camera rolling in silence, without support, and at times by risking everything they have, only with their faith in truth and humanity. You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for Thursday, December 4th, 2025. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Ken Kuminski.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 4 of Boat Baby by Vicky Nguyen. Following that at 3 o'clock is the New Yorker, and at 4 o'clock a re-airing of today's Buffalo News. Stay with us for these readings and more. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low